The COVID-19 pandemic has become a global economic and health crisis of unprecedented scale in the past 2 years. Our lives and livelihoods have been changed drastically, be it for the better or for worse. It's Time to Do Business is a video series with the aim of engaging the business community of Malaysia to understand how the pandemic affected them, their experiences and lessons that came with it, and how they have survived. I'm Khoo Hsu Chuang, and it's time to do business. For the first episode of this series, we delve into the local food and beverage industry, which has been hit hard by the volatile changes wrought by the pandemic. From intermittent closures to the fear of becoming an infection hotspot, many restaurants were left wondering if they could even survive. What was the most challenging thing about when this whole thing happened March last year?
We as an industry, we had three big challenges, I would say. The first one was definitely ambiguity. We didn't know much about what we now know as COVID-19, and when we were slapped with the lockdown, we weren't sure how long it would last. We were not able to communicate effectively with our suppliers, our creditors, our people, and our landlords, and that kind of led to the third problem, which was cash flow management. Most people may not know this, but most F&B operators are highly geared. So a lot of times what we do is when we get a good deal and for produce and what's not, we tend to sit on a large stockpile of stocks, right? And basically all our money is in the fridge and freezers.
We are hopefully coming out of the tail end of this pandemic, right? I mean, I've been to restaurants and they're packed, I've been to malls and they're packed, hotels are packed. Hopefully there's a light on the horizon and it's going to shine really bright in 2022. At the end of this whole tunnel, right, Jeremy, have we seen the best and the fastest and the fittest emerge at the end of it?
I think the survival so far is not really the survival of the fittest per se. It could be the survival of the quickest.
Of the quickest?
So the quickest to be able to pivot, the quickest to be able to manage expectation of your suppliers, your creditors, your staff, your landlords. For you to be able to sell pasta as a takeaway is actually quite challenging. So if they were able to pivot, what it meant is they were able to sell the sauces or even like fresh pasta raw. The ability, that finding that model to kind of like have navigate around all this ambiguity, that is actually survival.
Has the pandemic changed the relationship between yourselves and your typical stakeholders? Typical stakeholders would be, your customers or your landlords or your suppliers, right? Has it become more strategic or more amenable to the difficulties?
I've heard of and seen stories where landlords actually go above and beyond to ensure that the tenant actually stay with them and tie through this very difficult period, right? And hopefully the tenant will come out stronger. Relationship with the consumers, again, it's another mixed bag because we've had so much positive experience with consumers when we first reopened. But at the same time, when I speak to my members, and I hear some of the, not grievances, but some of the feedback that has been really, really like
not fair sometimes, right?
What I want to appeal to the consumers is actually give the industry another chance. Your singular experience with a restaurant may be negative at that junction, but you may not understand what was going on behind the scene. Give them another chance.
So what can be done necessarily within your control, you and the members, right? What can you guys do more of in 2022 to help your own sector come back? Because at the end of the day, it's almost a case of, resources are thin, not everybody is all hands on deck because they're just spread too far apart. What can you guys do on your own as well?
Some of our members are actually doing some level of cross-promotion amongst themselves. It's not something that is driven by the association, to be fair. We don't dictate how our members do business, but we facilitate. So we notice some of our members are actually, I call it cross promotion. So if I have a restaurant, you have a restaurant, we exchange our chefs for a certain period. I will highlight some of the food of your menu on my menu for a certain period. And this is just to tell people that, hey, look, if you've been to my restaurant, Maybe you want to go to my friend's restaurant. So these are things that's happening.
We also saw some quite established names, close their doors, perhaps not permanently, hopefully not. Do you think that with the economy recovering, that some of these names can come back into the fray?
I think going back to the earlier point about what was the biggest hit or biggest challenges that the industry faced, the ambiguity did not do well or did not sit well with many of the older operators, and I think that's why they felt that having the inability to serve at its maximum capacity doesn't make sense for them, and they rather take a pause. Hopefully they'll come back.
So in terms of evolution, right? Because evolution happens as we speak, as we sleep. How do you think the F&B sector, driven by passionate people like yourself, foodies like yourselves, how do you evolve the model going into the future?
I think the future for restaurateurs is really about having multiple streams of sustainable income. Aside from this, what we need to do is also dissect our offering and figure out what we can do and what we can sell as experiences, both online and offline. What I mean is, we are now working on ideas on how we can bottle some of our sauces and hopefully be able to offer that online to consumers. Some of the homemade pastas and noodles that we do, we're also considering that, and even offer masterclass. I mean,
yeah, why not?
Offer like virtual cocktail classes, virtual cooking classes. It's times like this where we should really sit down and plan for a rainy day.
The Malaysian government imposed the Movement Control Order on March 18, 2020, which prevented many businesses to open up except for essential services. People couldn't leave their homes except for emergencies, and this was a huge blow for restaurants and eateries who rely on walk-in customers. We now speak to some of them to understand what it was really like.
This pandemic come along, there's a lot of new requirement and new SOP that we have to adhere to, all learning day by day. But as a leader, we basically need to be very calm and composed. So subscribe to those official channels like those National Security Council, get the most accurate information before we act. Quite lucky, in fact, we are adding talents during these last 2 years. We see more opportunity, probably because some talent came out from the other industries. So we took those opportunities actually to grab those talents to grow our own organization. The supply chain issue really hit us starting now actually. So in the two areas, one is the lead time on getting items that are imported from overseas. Then the second thing will be the cost pressure from the vendors. We actually work closely with our vendors, our key vendors, to basically looking at our buffer strategy and plan ahead of time so that we can continue to build our restaurants according to the schedules. And the other part is we start to source for more vendors that could supply us kind of a similar quality products at a reasonable cost. And I will foresee what we should focus on. It will be more on the omni-channel, on how you can grab your sales from all sort of channels and how you synergize all these channels, whether it's online, offline. You want to get the consistent experience to give customers. I think that's the key thing.
Difficulties, I think most of the F&B are actually having struggles, or to say difficulties on adapting to the new norms, this and that. Yes, we are also for POLA-DOLA because before we were focused on dine-ins. Suddenly, we were told to shut off the dine-in and focus on deliveries and then takeaways, which poses a bit of challenge to us. For the menu itself, we've been doing some changes on and off during the pandemic to make it suitable for delivery. People are more willing to engage with delivery or takeaways. Delivery parties, the revenue mechanism will change a bit because they help us on pushing us to the public, and they charge commission on that. During the pandemic, we do actually some promotions and introduce some value set, bundle meals. From there onwards, the response is quite good. So we try to remain even for dine-ins. Now we see ourselves as a social meetup point. They will still prefer to meeting friends, families in a different ambience than a home style. Eco Gardens is quite good. They are having many community events like weekly, monthly, and they focus on lifestyle. This place is kind of jive with what we want. With passionate people like us or Eco, we can create an awesome experience and multiply it to more places. Riding on a giant shoulder will also be an easier way.
And that's it for this episode of It's Time to Do Business. We learned about the struggles that the F&B industry had to go through amidst the pandemic and learned how they faced the challenges head on to make it to where they are today. I'm Khoo Hsu Chuang, and thank you for watching.